Okay, we should start recording.
It has started already. Yes, should we start? We should start with some music.
Oomps, 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 oomps,
No, like I'll
oomps,
actually play something.
oomps, 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 oomps.
Um, wait, wait.
मीम बन जाएंगे भाई. Yes! So
Hello, welcome everyone to episode number 4.
that was not me farting. That was me trying to pull my chair forward. But I guess we'll never really know.
So, Hari, how are you feeling
So
today?
I am feeling like this sunflower. How are
Wow,
you today?
wow, same. Like completely full of love and excitement.
Always,
Yeah,
always.
really happy to be starting episode number 4.
Yeah, I don't know why we're behaving this weird. I mean, we had clearly decided that this is never going to be our internet persona, but here we are. Well, so uh,
So what are we talking about today? Tell us.
let's talk about how you're such a beautiful human being, Shatij. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how your presence is so magnetic. Let's talk about how irresistible you are. Let's talk about how
See,
difficult it is.
all
An
these
eternal
topics.
cutie patootie.
Listen, let me tell you, like they're already researching it at Harvard. It's
Mhm.
already on. It's
Okay.
not something we could just discuss. It's like a whole research paper.
Okay, you signed an
So
NDA. You're
yeah,
not going to
yeah.
debates unless I approach you by an academic body. I get it. I get it. I get it. But let
So
me tell you one thing.
instead, yeah.
Pride is the downfall of the intellect.
Oh, we'll see how that goes.
Oh, we'll see. We shall see.
Until then, we should talk about design. What do you
Now
think?
you're going to tell me what we're going to talk about, huh? That's so. I mean, which year are you in? That's not very feminist of you. Yeah, I guess we should get back into the video. Okay. All right. So this is basically part two. Wait, did we split the previous video in two parts already?
No, that was supposed to be part one.
Okay, that was just part. Okay, so this is part two. So this is basically part two of a few questions on design that we'll be getting back into. And if you've not watched part one already,
Yeah,
Kshitij
we
would
will
link
link it
it.
here. You
It's
can
linked
go and
somewhere
click
in
there.
here.
Yeah.
We are a lot more serious in that video. I
Yes.
mean, we are still very serious.
Yeah.
We still, yes, we are still going to be addressing serious issues,
Yeah,
but
like we won't be
the sake
joking
of
about things.
levity,
So take us seriously, guys, even if we are
we're
looking
joking, but
really,
take us
yeah,
seriously. Yeah, take us seriously. We command you to take us seriously.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm. Who are we even thanking?
Uh,
I mean, we're literally talking into a camera. Okay, never mind.
just
I should not talk any further. Okay. All right. So the first question for today is, how can new designers negotiate better salaries and freelance rates without underselling themselves?
would you like to go first?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you can.
I think this video is gonna have so many bloopers. Okay. Um, so first of all, I mean, in our previous video, we've already emphasized on why it's really necessary for you to build your portfolio and why it's really necessary for you to fortify your skills. And um, when you do this, you in some sense are also keeping yourself abreast of uh, industry standards and industry rates. And what generally happens is that if your portfolio is really good, I mean, I think this is true for any creative who needs to have a lot of confidence in themselves, is that you need to learn how to, let's say, ask for what you deserve, or for what you ask for, the money that your work deserves, especially when it comes to, let's say, like this is one experience I've had where someone approached me to make a logo for them once, and they were willing to pay me 1000 rupees for the logo. Sorry, they were willing to pay me at the most 2000 rupees for the logo, 2000, maybe 3000. And it didn't seem fair to me because I understand how much work goes into brand identity. And I quoted a much higher uh, commercial, which I'm not going to mention right now. But the point is, the person who worked with them before me created a logo for 1000 rupees, which I think is completely unfair, not only to the creative who's making the logo, but also to the person who's going to be working after you. So when you say, when you, I mean, and the logo that the person had created was really good. So what really upsets me more often than not is creatives not understanding the value of their work and them not um, demanding for a better pay more often than not. And I think one of the best ways to do it is to understand the budgetary allocation, or to understand what your client is willing to offer, and then trying to let them know what you offer in terms of, let's say, any project that you're going to be taking on, how you work, how you differ from, let's say, rather than how you differ, the conversation should be oriented towards what you bring to the table, and towards, let's say, um, giving them a very clear understanding that you have a very clear understanding of design and of what you're doing and of their brand, and how you can work at the intersection of these three. So how you fit in with their brand, and what gaps their brand has, and how can your work basically help bridge those gaps. So I think, first of all, ask. Ask, and you shall receive. So, apart, like, I mean, of course, you can't have a shitty portfolio and a shitty work ethic and ask for thousands of dollars. That's not going to work out. But yes, I mean, if your portfolio is in place, if your work ethic is in place, if your integrity and your values are in place, I think you should be a bit more, I think, you should be a bit more confident in asserting your space. And I wouldn't say that you should always abide by industry standard rates. I personally feel that that is applicable for the industry. If someone wants to work with you, they have to uh, be willing to negotiate with you, and they
Wow,
have to be willing to see what you bring to the table, and they have to be willing to, um, the
that is an
negotiation.
iconic line.
What?
Like, that is for the industry. I love that.
I mean,
I just,
I don't want to sound pompous, or I don't want to sound like an asshole, but then, I mean, creativity can't really be quantified. It's very difficult to quantify creativity. And I think a lot of creativity is gauged by the confidence that you bring to your work, and how willing you are to say that, hey, I know my work is great. I know this is, um, this piece of art that I'm going to create, this piece of design that I'm going to create, deserves the amount that I'm asking from you, and you are going to give me that amount. And if you're not, all the very best. I hope you find someone who aligns with your needs better. I mean, a big part of it is also being able to say no. So, I mean, stand your ground and ask.
I think you summarized it pretty well. I guess I'll just add on to what you just said. So it really begins by just asking. A lot of times I have undersold myself. I still struggle with it to a certain degree. I'm working on it, but like I've really realized it really starts by asking, like just asking. That's like, it sounds lame to even say this, that if you want a better price you have to ask, but that is like one of the biggest step you could take. Secondly, as you said, portfolio should be in place because there should be something to back it up. So either you've worked with this client already and they know your work ethic, or you have a portfolio in place and you can always kind of direct them ki, hey, this is the kind of work that I do, and based on this I am quoting what I'm quoting. And as you said, it really, you know, the kind of effort and the creative process that you are putting into it. So even though you can take an idea as to what, you know, people are charging around, that's just a basic framework for you. In the end, you know better. If you are putting 10x more efforts into it, you have all the right to ask it, even if it's a bit higher than the industry standard. And of course you have to back it up by the kind of product or service that you would give.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really is your call in the end. And you know, same thing happened with me, wherein I was working on a logo, and I would like to quote what I asked them. So I said 15,000 for the logo, and this brand told me that they got their entire brand strategy made in 5K.
Mm.
To me, you know, it sounds ridiculous to me, because that designer has absolutely tremendously undersold themselves. And
Yeah.
you know, when you undersell yourself, even though it's just you, a single person talking to this one brand, you're actually representing a whole community. As you
Right.
said, you also have to think about the person. Like, some thought should be there as to, you know, how it would be like for the next person who would come there. So this brand was able to tell me this key, oh, 5K may we did entire brand strategy, but that is just absolutely ridiculous. And this person didn't think about it at all, even though sure they got the money that they wanted. Maybe they were in a bit of a situation, but whatever it is. But yeah, you should be a little mindful also while quoting. And it's not just you working, like you actually are part of a community as well, and you stand
Okay.
for a lot of designers when you quote.
Right. Right. I wanted to add one point. I hope I'm not interrupting you. The point that I wanted to add is I saw this reel recently. Maybe you could mention the reel somewhere on the screen later. But it did suggest that India is one of those places where it has a lot of jobs, it has a lot of design jobs, but designers are severely underpaid. So I do think that the quote unquote industry standard is also something that is not, um, it is not set with a lot of consideration for what designers bring to the table. I do think that the industry standards are not accurate.
Yeah, a lot of times I don't think all brands understand how complex the creative process is. For them,
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, you know, you just have to move a few things around, and that's how you just give us options, and then we just keep on and on. But there's no way for us to explain that process, nor is there a way for them to probably imagine it. So I feel like standing your ground is the only way you can actually make them understand that what you're doing is what is the worth of what you're doing and the process you put into it. So yeah.
So breaking, like, I mean, I would always suggest that the industry standard needs to be broken because the industry standard, again, I feel is set very arbitrarily. I feel inflation needs to catch up. I mean, sure, I mean, like the value of things has genuinely gone up, but why are we still being paid so little? Right?
True
Why
that.
are we not being fairly compensated? Like, I know design education is not something that is cheap. Education is not cheap, period. And when it comes to compensating designers, I think when it comes to compensating, yeah, designers and artists and creatives, I think the industry needs to catch up on what they call the standard is.
Yeah, and I think the standard needs to be set by designers now. And
Yeah,
not, yeah.
yeah.
What is this
And
industry that we're talking about? These aren't designers who set the standard. It's
Yeah,
mostly brands
exactly.
who are dictating it.
Yeah, and I mean, I do understand that it's very complex and there are a lot of forces at play, but I think the change somewhere has to start with the individual and with the individual asserting themselves. At least I think, I hope that is some sort of a butterfly effect, which leads to a much larger change. But let's say you start demanding for, let's say, a higher commercial, or let's say the right commercial for your work. I don't want to say a higher commercial because, um, right, that is again the distinction between expensive and costly. Costly is something that costs a lot of money to make. So if something is costly, it justifies the amount of money you spend on it. Versus when something is expensive, you don't really, it didn't cost them a lot of money. There's just a massive profit margin. With creatives, because it's so passion driven, with industries, because they're so passion driven, there is like um, attaching a monetary unit to that passion is very difficult. So you need to gauge what is the right amount for you, for what you are bringing to the table, and you need to be able to quote that. And
Correct.
yeah, stand your ground. I hope we covered that
Yeah.
question without meandering too much. And should we move on to the next question?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the next question is freelancing a viable path straight out of college, or do you need industry experience first?
I would say right away that don't fear freelancing.
Mm.
Um, Recently, I met juniors, a lot of juniors at an event, and turns out they started freelancing in like their first, second year itself. And this is not to say that you should just step into it, but I'm saying if the right opportunity comes your way and if you're really feeling it, you should just dive in. Because
Right.
I've seen during our summer internships, which is like the shorter internships, the amount of responsibilities that are given to an intern are sometimes larger than a full-time person. So we it's us who have this mental distinction between, oh, like I'm inexperienced, and of course there is, I mean, there are people who have experience and maybe they know a little bit better, but that is not to say that you can't do better work or like good work, and you
Right.
shouldn't put yourself down just because you don't have experience, because you are at the same time bringing in a fresh perspective and probably also like an updated view as to what's happening around. Because you are a design student, but you are also a person, right? Who is experiencing the world, who has a different take on things. So you definitely bring something new to the table always. So I would say don't fear it. It's something you can start right off. Maybe initially you would be in an assistant position, or maybe you'll get the main position as well. But anyways, I'm saying put yourself into it. It's going to feel scary, and let me tell you, you wouldn't ever feel ready. It's just about you have to push it, and then you'll learn to swim as you go. But yeah, I think you shouldn't fear it, and you can totally step into it at any point in time.
So, I don't like the fact that there has been a distinction created between freelancing and industry experience, wherein industry experience is something that you can only gain from a full time job. I would say that job security is what you get from a full time job. A monthly paycheck is what you get from a full time job. With freelancing, what I have seen people complain about and what I have experienced in the past more often than not is an irregularity of income. But there are a lot of tools in place that you could enforce early on to ensure that you get your income on time. Also, with freelancing, a lot of credibility is something that the individual, a lot of credibility and accountability is something that rests with the individual. So you dictate timelines and deadlines a lot more. You have to be very self motivated. And um, yeah, so freelancing is a viable path. You can do multiple freelancing gigs, that is an upside. And also, I think you need to learn how to craft your, let's say, contract when you're freelancing, or you need to get a lot of things. Let's say a lot of the negotiation has to be something that is on record and not off record, so that you can hold whoever is employing you accountable later on to hold up to their end of the bargain. But yes, freelancing I think is very viable, and it is, um, I mean, I see it as, um, being the equivalent of industry experience. I don't see it any different from a full-time job except the remunerative aspect. But yes, there are multiple freelancing jobs that happen on a contractual basis or on a recurring basis, where, let's say they hire you for a certain, prerequisite or certain roles, and they think it's more viable to pay you on a monthly basis as opposed to pay you on a project basis. So there are a lot of considerations within freelancing itself. There are, project like there are remunerative options where you get paid based on projects, or you're hired based on projects, and there are options where you're hired, for recurring, on a recurring basis for multiple projects, but you're still a freelancer. So there are, it is a viable option, it is something that you can explore. But yes, I think you need to be a little more mindful of your finances. You need to be a little more mindful of how you plan your time. You need to be mindful of how you're spreading yourself, I mean, how you're spreading your week, or how you're spreading your work across a week if you have multiple gigs on board. And am I missing anything? Am I missing anything? Yeah, I think that's about it. So there are a few things that you need to be mindful of, because, I mean, I understand the financial stability that comes with having a full time gig or a paycheck. That is something that freelancing might not necessarily give you initially. But once you know how to navigate those waters, once you know how to manage your finances better, it should get, a lot more easier, and it should be a much more viable, let's say, course to tread.
Yeah. I think because you have a lot more freelancing experience, if you all have any doubts, I think they can reach out to you as well,
Yeah.
and you could
Yeah.
like guide them. Because I feel like there's a lot that goes into making sure the payments come in time, and what are some of the measures you can keep in place so that they can hold that their end of the bargain as well. I think वो थोड़ा something which you only learn through experience, and if you can talk to someone who's experienced in that sense, it's always better. So you can always reach out to Harini in regards to that.
Are designers expected to be strategists, researchers, or business thinkers in addition to being creatives?
I think it's how you want to position yourself, because there's need for everyone. There is need for people who can just execute well also, because I also think there's always a surplus of thinkers and strategists and executors who can put that idea actually into place are kind of less at times. But it really depends on you. Let's say if you are someone who is really able to plan well, and if that's something that you've seen it works better, or you think it can work better. So I think there's no restriction in that sense, nor does the industry expect you to always be a certain way. What I have seen though is the role can be diverse, in the sense that it's not necessary that, let's say, if you are a graphic designer, you will always 100% of the times only work on graphics. Sometimes they might give you a small side assignment which would involve copywriting, or let's say little bit of video editing. So I've seen that happen. But let's say if you are someone who is interested in being a strategist as well, it's something that you kind of approach the people you work with and let them know that this is also something that you do, this is also something you're interested in, and then you can change and mold your role accordingly.
So the point I want to make is similar to the point you made. I think it's similar but not exactly the same. So I feel, who do you think you are as a designer is a major question. One, again, there are two schools of thought. You can either be a generalist or you can be a specialist, and there is space for both of them to exist. And I mean, it doesn't, um, it always helps to have multiple tools, or let's say multiple skills in your arsenal. So, of course, it's not going to be bad, or it's not going to be, it's always going to be an advantage to you if you can also research well, if you can also strategize well, if you can also think from a commercial standpoint. However, the crux is, what sort of a designer do you wish to be? And what we believe may not necessarily be what is set in stone. Or rather, I don't think there is anything that is set in stone, but
Nothing is set in stone.
nothing is set in stone. But we are more general, we are more inclined towards generalists. And I mean, if you were to ask us, or at least if you were to ask me, I would say that a designer generally operates between, or as a bridge between, many different roles. So I would obviously say that yes, you are not
And a bit of strat,
expected.
sorry to cut you, but like a bit of strategy is going to be involved in your design, because
Exactly.
with design you have to have some strategy, because you want to make it different. Let's say you want people to look at it, maybe attract more customers, so you would have that thinking somewhere at the back of your head. So it's
Exactly.
not an isolated thing that you would do if you were
Exactly.
designing. It's something that you already do. The question is, do you want to do more of it? So yeah,
Right.
and that's
Right.
completely on you, dependent on you.
Right. Right. So I'm just moving on to the next question. Um, okay, this is interesting. Should designers focus on traditional roles, graphic, fashion, UI, UX, or move into more hybrid fields like design research, experience design, or speculative design? I think this is, again, um, a reconfiguration of what we've already addressed.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, if I'm going to be honest, the world is evolving rapidly, and they say that AI is going to take a lot of jobs. I believe AI is also going to create a lot of jobs. I mean, that's what they said about the Industrial Revolution, right? The Industrial Revolution is going to take all the jobs. What are people going to do after the Industrial Revolution? But hey, the Industrial Revolution also created a lot of jobs. So I don't think AI is something to be feared. But yes, we are, to be very honest, to be very pragmatic, uh, what we define as a traditional role in design is being reconfigured to a large extent. And this is a very dynamic career path, it's a very dynamic career choice. So if you are someone who's like very adamant about just doing XYZ, I don't think that is viable in the long run, because this path requires you to be a bit more malleable, and it does require you for you to adapt, but not necessarily entirely forego your core. So it's basically design thinking, design process, design principles. They are your core, but the way in which they are applied and integrated are very dynamic. So that is something that is always going to keep changing, and you have to learn to adapt to the times, or you need to keep finding your niche, or you need to establish yourself in order to be able to navigate waters. Because hey, this is like the classic order or chaos question, right? I mean, look at the economic or the financial and the geopolitical um, state we are in right now. It is very, very chaotic. It is very unprecedented, and we are going through a lot. and AI is posing to be a great challenge, apart from a lot of other issues at play. And I mean, how long are you going to play with the same set of moves or the same five moves when the situation that you're given is something entirely new? So you have to uh, recalibrate your moves. You have to recalibrate how you think. You have to change your perspective, and you have to find something new to do that would suit the situation better.
Nice. I do agree with that. And what I feel is the minute you start with your design journey, let me tell you, you're in on a ride. Because hota kya hai ki, like you start with doing A, and in a few years you're doing J or K or L. 1 month you're doing M, next month you're doing
Are we sure
Y.
we're talking about design, Kshitij?
But,
Sorry. My bad, my bad.
but
My
what I
bad.
mean to say
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
let's say, for example, let's take your example. You started with textile design. While you still hold a lot of interest in textile design, you're doing a lot of fashion communication related work now. So it's going to take you places. And while I think you have to adapt actively, it is also something that happens as you go, and you don't always have to do it actively. What I mean by that is, let's say you start off as a graphic designer, and you are, let's say, imagine you're working with a restaurant chain as a graphic designer, right? You work with them for 1 2 years. Now, while your core is graphic design, you have a lot of experience in terms of what's going on in the food industry or the restaurant business, right? So you've already kind of developed a niche, even though that was not your intention. So as you work with brands and clients, you end up also gathering experience of, things which are a little bit related, and you develop your own niche. So let the journey also take you places. You don't always have to strategize as you work. Something clicks, you like something new, and once when you look back, you understand ki, okay, like there is some structure to this, and this is something that is very special, and my journey is very special in that sense. So yeah, I think you would develop your own niche, so you don't have to really sit and be like, if I want to be a traditional designer, or a contemporary mixed media designer, or anything of that sort.
Mm.
Because anyways, you're going to have to, as we discussed in the last point, you would have to strategize. You would need to know about market a bit, what's happening. You would have to understand what are the business folks, or like the management or marketing folks talking about, what are their needs, what are the customer key needs. So yeah, I think your journey will be unique to you, and it will show you the path, is what I think.
So the next question is, how do new designers deal with imposter syndrome when entering the professional world? You should answer this. You should answer this because you are going through your imposter syndrome phase right now.
Oh my god. See, it. Shit, I'm on a spot.
Yep,
Oh
got you by the
god.
balls.
Oh god. Oh god. Okay. Um, well, let me tell you. It's not like you can go and do a X activity or like an X assignment, and you would kind of come to the realization that you are not an imposter anymore. It's just something you tell yourself that, okay, I am good at this, and that's the, in my experience, that's the only thing you can do. What can help is having a body of work that you can look at and be like, give yourself the validation ki, okay, this is the kind of work I've done already, this looks great, people have liked it. And that's something you can do for yourself, to just come back to and be like, no, I think we know a little bit of what we're doing. But well, other than that, I don't think it there's like a direct cure to it. It's just you keep on doing things, and as you do it, you're like, maybe mujhe aa raha hai. And truth be told, everyone's kind of figuring it out, and it's easier said than actually internalized. But seriously, guys, everyone is just figuring it out as they go. Nobody is there like 100% master of anything at all. In my experience, I have ended up working with a lot of startups. And in startups, you basically directly work under the CEO, right? Because the team structure is very small. So whenever
Mm.
I have had conversations with them about their journey, everyone has told me that there wasn't a moment wherein they felt ki, oh, I'm ready now to jump into this. It was
Mm.
always like, okay, like I have to do this now or like later, so why not do it now. कोई कोर्स नहीं है गाइस इसका, nor you can do therapy for this or something. It's just you have to jump in it and then like somehow figure it out. I think in my experience वही हुआ है. But yeah.
So, um, I had like, I don't remember who presented this perspective to me, but it was definitely a friend. Uh, Imposter syndrome is basically something that happens when someone tells you your work is great. It's not necessarily, I mean, it is very internal, but um, someone tells you your work is great, and let's say you consistently get a lot of acclaim for your work, but then you feel like you don't deserve it, right? You feel like you're lying. You feel like you are, fooling people. Well, let me break it to you. Your work is not all that great. I tell this to myself all the damn time as well. I'm not trying to be mean here. I mean, uh, underneath, um, you know, being underneath the feeling of being an imposter is the feeling of being quote unquote great at something. And I think that feeling is something that is nourished sometimes by the ego. And I don't think that is something that is beneficial for someone who wishes to learn, wishes to evolve, and wishes to grow. So I have, like, the way I have dealt with imposter syndrome is I have redirected that energy into something tangible that I can do and that I can, achieve. And I have not, let's say, I've not, two eternities later, I have not rested my entire identity on the quote unquote worth of my work. I mean, there is always going to be someone who's going to be better than you, obviously, but this is not what that's about, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
why,
think that was
why
such
does
an
everything
interesting
I say have
take.
to be so fucking.
That was such an interesting take because wow, like, well, there's a like what you said presents a very important side of what it is like. It's not always, am I good for this? It is also like you're doing something and people are saying you're great, but you feel like you're fooling them, right? And well, मीनिंग तुम ही क्रिएट कर रहे हो आउट ऑफ
Exactly.
एनीथिंग एंड एवरीथिंग. इट नथिंग, किसी को इनहेरेंट मीनिंग नहीं है लाइक. एंड यू आर लाइक, कैसे, इट्स ऑल सो इंटरनल. लाइक you think someone is doing good work because let's say they presented it well and you like their take on it, but inherently that work without that presentation or that take, what is it? It's just, I don't know, piece of something.
I mean, Meaning is something that is also collectively derived, yes.
Yeah.
But in terms of, let's say, imposter syndrome, when you think that you're fooling people, I mean, तुम इतने भी मतलब यार, you're giving yourself a lot of credit. Huh? You're so smart that you can fool so many people. Huh? I mean, I know it could sound stupid, but then I think imposter syndrome also, like a lot of different things. Like I can, I just think I've gotten really good at talking myself out of negative emotion because I don't see, uh, I mean, I see why negative emotion exists, but I don't let it affect me beyond the utility of why it exists. Like imposter syndrome, in a sense, let's say a small part of it is, if you look at it healthily, it is, let's say, serving as a critical voice, right? How can I actually be better, and how can I not just pretend to be better? It is, in some sense, um, trying to break the whole fake it till you make it. So you're asking yourself, am I still faking it or have I actually made it? Right? It's
Hmm,
just
hmm, hmm.
that question. It always starts out with having great taste. And skill is something you build eventually to
Correct.
execute taste. What doesn't go away is that you still have great taste. So, in that sense, you are not an imposter. You are trying and keep trying.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to change the world or back 10 awards, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, sure. I mean, wanting to change the world is a very noble goal, and wanting to create something impactful is a very noble thing. But, ठीक है यार, ठीक है नहीं
Matlab,
हुआ
I'm
तो.
just coming back to what you said about how this whole thing is nourished by the ego, right? Like everything that I do should
Mm.
have ekdam ghamasan impact on
Mm.
everything. I think just enjoy your journey. I guess I just keep saying this a lot,
Yeah, I
but
mean, just sit down, have ganne ka juice, I guess,
yes, I
like
think
just
that's the
breathe
real
maybe a
shit.
little bit, like go for a walk. Like we have become very chill people, huh? Or are we like peak Gen Z? We are like, हाँ ठीक है यार, मतलब
हो जाएगा.
ठीक है ना. मेरे को अभी मतलब यार, ये मेरे को इयरिंग बनाने में मजा आ रहा है, तो मैं इयरिंग बनाएगी अभी. ठीक है. See, but it's also very stoic, right? It's also like, what can you do about this? You can do what you have control over. It's not like you can go out there and just eradicate world poverty or do anything about the fucking tariffs. But
Yeah. At the end of the day, just knowing that you were, when you were doing that XYZ task, you had complete involvement, you had interest in it, and you gave it your best. I think, when you show these two, 3 points to that imposter syndrome, it just थोड़ा सा आवाज कम होता है, I
आवाज कम
believe.
होता है. Indeed. अच्छा.
Yeah.
Oh, oops. Stop laughing at me, you. You. I think I should make myself a nice cup of tea.
Cup of tea?
Cup of tea. Like
Yummy.
nobody can tell what we're saying when I say cup of tea.
Every night, oh, is it that sweet? I guess so. Interval, guys, interval.
Intermission. Intermission.
Hi guys, we're back. Did you miss us? Because we missed you. Well, that's an Instagram trend. I hope you got it. You got it, right? Please tell me. You got the reference.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that stuff. Yeah.
Come on, it's not that bad.
This is a perennial, timeless classic, the face that I'm making. It's Michael Scott. I hope you got that.
Oh, yeah. I miss The Office.
This could probably be the thumbnail of our video. Anyway. Mm.
Was the next burning question?
It is about burnout. Okay.
Wow.
Burning question indeed. What are some healthy ways to handle creative burnout and client feedback?
I think client feedback ka to I would say, let's I a lot of times I this is generally for any type of design. I think while it very exactly applies to graphic design, I think it's also relevant for any of the other fields, is that the client already has a mental picture of what they want. They are never completely clueless about what they want, or at least in the cases that I've been through. um, it's about understanding what is their mental picture and just basically showing it to them what they want,
Want to see,
the
right?
picture that they have already created. So that, let me rephrase that. um, to make sure that you receive less feedback and less iteration rounds, I think you should really spend some time talking with them thoroughly, and also asking them if they already have any references that you can see that they really like, because they are looking at something in the similar space. This is not to say that you should copy it, but you get a lot of guidelines as to what they already think. So start with that, spend a lot of time doing that, so that you don't have to keep on receiving feedback and iterations. Now let's say you've done all that, and this is your third round, fourth round, and it's just not stopping. I think then it's time that you really put your foot down and be like, okay, this is third, fourth round, and sure, we can iterate if you have that kind of time, but this should be charged separately. And it's even better if this is something that's cleared out before you even begin the work, which is something you can keep in your contract, कि you would get 3 rounds of iteration and uske baad we would have to charge differently. So in that sense you don't feel bad after a point, even if it's like going on and on and on. And if it's really not going anywhere, then to you would have to stop it, because then there's no point. But even in that case, I feel like you should be paid. What do you think about it?
Of course, yeah, you should be compensated for the work you've done.
Yeah.
And it did happen to me once where I had been going through endless rounds of reiteration, uh, and the clients I have unfortunately worked with, some of them have had a lot of clarity in terms of what they wanted. So I have delivered the final product or the final outcome in zero iterations sometimes, and sometimes it's just like two or three. But in some cases, it's exceeded 15.
Oh,
On the
15
15th,
is crazy.
and this is not this is me not keeping a technical track of मजा नहीं आ रहा है. मतलब 15 बार तुम मजा नहीं आ रहा है जब तुम सुन चुके हो, मतलब लाइक वो वाइब नहीं है. लाइक I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not a chief vibe officer. Sorry, that's not my role. That's not what you hired me for.
You should
But
go to Troy Sivan, because he's the chief vibes officer of Absolute. But sorry.
everything. Yeah. So, yeah, there have been such instances where, like, on the 15th, you're trying to get a design right. And, like, let's say you are 7, 8 iterations in. They say, Maza nahi aa raha, and they want you to try something new. I am like, I am not being compensated enough to try something that new, right? Like, I've already spent 5 days on this, and you want me to scratch that? So, in such cases, I've had to terminate projects, and I have given like a very detailed. I mean, when I'm terminating such a project, I generally give a detailed list of all that I've done. Like, this was like a project that I had taken up back in 2023. It was right after graduation, around June, July, I think. And I was like, hey, this is a list of everything that I've done, and this is not working out for you. I understand, but I've already done a lot of work, and I don't think I'm going to be in a position to expend my creative resources any further in this direction. I understand that um, you know, you might feel like I have not fulfilled my end of the bargain, but I do feel saturated with this project and I don't think we are going anywhere. So I'm completely fine with, like, I at least demand three-fourths of the payment to be made,
True,
or at least, like, generally I take an advance, but in cases where there are no advances given and so much of the work is extracted, at least three-fourths of the payment has to be made. This person was actually kind enough to make the complete payment.
oh, wow.
And yeah, they made the complete payment, even though, I mean, back then I didn't quote um, as much as I should have quoted, keeping in mind the amount of work that I had done. But yes, uh, yeah, that happened. And sometimes you can deal with client feedback, but sometimes it genuinely does get out of control. It genuinely does become something that you can't continue to put up with, which is fine. As far as burnout goes, I mean, create pockets of boredom for yourself, create a self care routine that does not involve screens, go for long walks, I guess, or like allow your brain to meander a bit. Like when you let your brain just wander off, you get a lot of ideas. You see a lot of beauty even in the most mundane things, and that is something that slowing time down is something that you have to voluntarily choose to do to be a better creative.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same lines. I feel we did talk a little bit about this last time, but yeah, I think boredom is really essential. Just give थोड़ा सा empty space जब आता है ना, that's the only time when you are you know again full of new ideas. And don't do it for the sake of new ideas even. Just look at it as a break from everything. Let's say if
Mm,
you're मैं तो I recommend this a lot. If let's say you're in the gym or you are just like walking down somewhere, don't even put music on. Just walk, or just
mm,
you know don't let कुछ distraction ही नहीं चाहिए. Just be there. Let's say you are at a doctor's clinic and you have to wait. There are a few patients in line. Just sit. Don't even use your phone, and you would find it so interesting how you would start looking at little details that are around you. And this is really important because these are things like when you actually go and immerse yourself, it's I won't be able to tell you exactly how it helps, but it really, like, the more your observation develops, the more a context you have about things, you can work on a variety of different projects. So yeah, I think just be present for a while, and that would definitely help regain that creative energy back.
hmm. Okay, this is also an interesting question. Should designers be emotionally detached from their work, or is emotional investment necessary for great design? Two years later.
I'm just trying to frame it properly.
I understand. I understand. Take your time.
I feel like to a certain extent, when you are actively working on that project, some amount of emotional involvement might happen because let's say if you're working at it passionately, it tends to become a close part of you. It becomes your baby, so it's natural. It's only natural to feel emotional about your work, but it shouldn't be emotional to an extent that you know let's say someone had a different perspective on your work and you're not able to sit with it at all. It's it's not also important that you take their perspective completely, because that is their truth, that is how they see it, and you maybe approached it with a completely different perspective and a completely different process. But I think you should be open to feedback. And again, I'm not saying, let's say if someone says it's bad, then it's bad necessarily, but you should be able to listen to it. I think emotional involvement shouldn't come between that, especially when you're working in design, you're not working in art. work in design, wherein there are stakeholders involved, people are going to be affected by it. It is strategic. So I think, yeah, that would be my answer.
I think enough emotional investment to keep you motivated to work on it, but not so much that you can't take critique,
Hmm.
and not so much that you are uninterested to work on it.
Yeah.
So you have to strike a balance. And this brings us, all right, this is interesting. Our last three questions are really interesting. So I think we have like answered this to some degree.
Okay.
Is a linear design career still relevant, or are careers becoming more fluid, like junior, senior, director? I think this is the case if you're working with brands. If you're going to have your own startup, this is not going to be the case. If you're going to be a freelancer or a consultant, this is not going to be the case.
Yeah, and I think again we've talked about it a little bit, but you make your own place, you make your own roles. That's what I've seen happening in, like, design spaces.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, when what was interesting is one of our applicants for the video editor position. So this person was working at this production house, and originally he was supposed to be a sound engineer there, but he developed interest in editing. And one fine day, he had the footage of a certain campaign, and just out of his interest, he started editing it, and he just showed it to them. They ended up liking it, and after that he started doing more of editing work as well. So it's something that you kind of develop as you start, and it might change. It's pretty fluid, and you can always build your own unique position in an organization.
Right. So this is a very interesting question. What industries outside of traditional design? I'm skipping one because we've already touched on it. It is basically on the question before this is, how can recent graduates position themselves for emerging roles like AI design, speculative design, or biomimicry? I think we've already touched upon
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
so I'm skipping this. So the next question is, what industries outside of traditional design fields are hiring designers, and how can graduates pivot into them? Do you mind if I go first?
Yeah, yeah, please.
So I have seen a lot of, um, let's say, institutions that work with medicine hire illustrators. At least that's come up on my LinkedIn feed. So they want someone who can do anatomical illustrations. So that is one space where I think a designer would fit in very well. But a designer with, let's say, a scientific background, or someone who has pursued science, or was, let's say, who understands science a bit more intimately, can fit into a niche like that. That is one example that I had, a very like an example that stood out very potently for this particular question. So that is one example I have when it comes to industries outside of traditional design fields.
I feel like while design awareness generally in the industry, not just design industry, just overall industry, has has not been the topmost or the best, but it has definitely increased. I see more and more brands trying to grow an in-house design team more than ever. So the possibilities are kind of endless. It can range from a hair care brand to, like, someone in food technology. um,
Right.
it and as we discussed earlier, or what you said right now, is, let's say someone has a medical background and they are also someone who illustrates, so they have their own unique niche. In that sense, like, as you grow, as you develop, let's say you end up working in certain industries, and that's how you develop your own niche. So I think like there's no real in like space wherein people aren't hiring designers anymore, because
Right.
just the scope of design is so huge. It goes from illustration to like exhibition design to web design to UI UX is bigger than ever. So many tech companies hire designers. So I don't have a specific example, but I see like the scope is broadening more and more.
By the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of this set of questions. If any of you have any more questions, please drop them in. Maybe we could do um, a poll, or we could take up suggestions on our Instagram IDs as well, where you can
Yes.
drop in more suggestions or questions.
You can
And
also always reach out to us on our Instagram. Let us know if there's a certain topic you'd like for us to take up, and we'd be more than happy to see how we could make that work.
yeah, thank you for mansplaining the point I already made, Kshitij.
Just in case you didn't understand what she said. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed. We had a lot of fun. And yeah,
Yeah, that was a joke, guys. Y'all don't have to cancel Kshitij. I bully him enough. All right? Yeah, I
thank you
keep
for
him.
clearing
Please
that up.
don't cancel him. Yeah, I know I just highlighted what he did, and please don't cancel him. Don't cancel him. He's kind of innocent like that. Yeah, I bully him enough. I bully him enough. I do enough for all of feminism, and I do enough. Yeah, I single-handedly I do enough in this dynamic
Yes,
to
guys.
shatter the male ego and
Please
the glass.
don't come at me. Thank you.
Don't come at him. Don't come at him. All right, guys. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found what we had to say useful,
Yes.
and
Yes.
stay tuned for more stuff in the future.
Thank
Would
you.
you
We'll see you back again soon.
Sorry.
Until then, take care. Namaste. Sasrikal. Good night.
Yeah, I think वो भी cut करना पड़ेगा हमें, because don't you say that stuff when you welcome someone?
Yeah, but they'll
Yeah.
understand. They're all cute folks. Cute, sweet folks.
Okay. All right, guys.
Signing off. Bye.